Movies on fire. Movies on fire. You know, once in a while, you watch a movie that has you looking inward, retreating into your own mind and questioning your existence, why you came there that day, why you decided to watch that movie, and if, just maybe if, your life could be spent doing other things. I am, of course, not talking about Stalker from 1979. I'm actually talking about Mission Impossible Part 8, The Final Reckoning. That movie went on for thousands of hours. I lamented my time watching it. It was the same thing over and over again. And then about 2 hours later, I decided to finally pull the trigger on Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker from 1979. And wow, I can't stress this enough. I feel the exact opposite of how I felt walking out of Mission Impossible. This is a dense movie, and holding the machete and carving through it, so to speak, is my co-host Zach. Zach, what did you think of Stalker?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is incredible. And despite the fact that it is very long, at like 2:40, I think, and that every shot somehow lasts forever, it breezes by. It was engrossing. Absolutely. I think I mentioned both of us were just enraptured by this towards the end of it. And that is the correct term. It is an incredibly engaging movie in that everything that it shows you is exactly what it wants to. Everything it has you think about is exactly what it wants to. And then you spend a lot of time thinking about it afterwards because there's just too much to absorb. It is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, we reached the conclusion of this movie, and I think we both just kind of... We were both just kind of staring into the screen for a little bit, and then, you know, I think the realization finally hit that the movie was over. And subconsciously, like telepathically, I think we kind of came to the same conclusion that we're going to need to give this some time to digest. I mean, this movie, there's so much going on in it.
Yeah, and this is definitely not one that we wanted. We don't usually sit down to record these right after we watch the movie anyway. We both seem to like the time to process through, read maybe a little bit, understand more of what our feelings are. But this is definitely one that we were like, no, we cannot do anything immediately. Like, we need to sit down and think and actually try and chew through some of this.
Basically, this movie gave us both homework.
Yeah, the best kind of homework. It's the one assignment a year you don't mind doing.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't think there are any incorrect interpretations of this movie. I think there's a lot. I mean, obviously, there's... You can't watch this movie and be like, well, obviously it was about the modern conception of the fast food restaurant in the 21st century or whatever. No, you can't walk away with that. But you can have 10 different people watch this movie and walk out of it with like 10 different interpretations.
Yeah, it's extremely... Vague isn't really the right word because it gives you a lot of sort of leading and of content. I guess I hate using that term in this, but of interesting ideas.
2025 moment.
I know, yeah.
Podcaster
I don't like
describes the movie Stalker as content.
Right, but there is a lot to chew through. There's a lot of sort of leading. There's a lot of artistry behind it, but it is not interested in giving you answers, which I think is a good thing. It sounds like the book that it's adapted from is much more conventionally science fiction. There's a lot more sci-fi elements. It's more clear what the zone is, what's happening. I kind of think the movie is stronger for not giving me an exact answer, though.
Enigmatic, I think, is the correct word to describe Stalker. It's so much of it is unsaid. Even the cinematography relies on there being a lot of negative space, and it's like the way the shots are laid out in this movie. It almost kind of reminds me of a Rorschach test, where it's almost inviting you, the viewer, to project onto the movie and kind of, you know, let it just resonate with you a little bit more.
Yeah, and just to mention the cinematography before we get into a heavy thematic or kind of reading of this, can you tell me a little bit more about these insane long takes? This whole movie feels like it's the
average shot
series of long
length
takes.
Is over a minute, just over a minute, And the longest take in this film, the longest single shot is 6 minutes and 50 seconds, which that's a long shot. That is so long. I mean, I feel like today everyone's like, oh my gosh, this movie had a oneer that was like 8 minutes long, but it was so cool. No, this is the same composition, albeit with some gradual zooming in over time, but it is like literally the same shot for like 6 minutes, nearly 7 minutes. And I thought what was so neat about this, it really gives you an opportunity to digest the entire thing and to sort of, build out the space where these actors are interacting in. Like it really gives you a chance to focus in on the performers in these movies. And speaking of the cast in this film, were there any actors who really caught your attention in this movie? I mean, who do you think has the best performance out of all the characters here?
Probably, and I don't know the names of any of the actors because
you can just say the characters.
Yeah, they're hard to. There also aren't that many characters. Really, the Stalker and the writer stand out to me as the strongest.
Yeah, Alex. God help me, I'm about to speak some Russian here. Alexander Kaidanovsky. I really hope I didn't fuck that up. I mean, not that any of these people would be that pissed off, because it just so happens that a lot of the cast and crew died of cancer after filming this movie.
Yeah. Was that at all related to filming this movie, Michael?
Yeah, sure was. yeah. But Kaidanovsky, I feel like of all the people, like, don't get me wrong, everyone has an arc in this movie, but I feel like we see the most transformation happen with Stalker's character.
That's interesting, because I'm not actually sure that transformation is even correct. I kind of think all the characters enter and leave extremely similarly, which is part of what I like about it, actually, that there's not really so much a character growth or character change as a character reveal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That we're just seeing different layers of these characters, but they're the same person. It's only really... Only it takes place over like a day, right?
Well, he certainly develops a new understanding of himself and his life, his profession in relation to the zone.
Does he even? Because I don't know if he has a very different perspective leaving as he does going in.
We are getting ahead of ourselves here. We need to tell people what the hell is going on in this movie.
Yeah, that's I agree. Yeah, good question.
I'm sorry. It's just it's really with the movies you're very passionate about, that you love, that you just want to like dive right in. And
so hard not to.
I feel like that is a testament. I mean, look, this show, we try to structure it away from was this movie good? Should you check it out? Because it's a really boring question. Like, look, should you watch Stalker? Yes, you can. End of podcast. We're done here. Of course you should watch it. But it's like there's a lot going on in it. And with that being said, where does this movie? Who do we start the movie with, Zach?
Yeah, so we start
let's break it down
with a nuclear family. So the Stalker, who is not named. None of the characters really have traditional names, with one exception. Yeah. So we have the Stalker.
That was his wife saying "duh," by the way.
Ah, yes. She does have a really deep voice, surprisingly. But yeah, so the Stalker and his wife, they have one daughter whose name is Monkey, although we do not know that at the time. And they have an argument, a very passionate argument, over his job, which, as it turns out, is to be a stalker, which is to lead people into the zone.
She basically calls him a deadbeat husband for constantly fucking around with that goddamn zone in the backyard.
Yep, she calls him out for not being a good caretaker to his daughter, and to her. But he goes. He says he's going to lead another group into the zone. He'll be back later. And then we meet our other two characters. And really, those are the only main characters. There are a couple of small background appearances.
And just a technical shout out. So in the beginning of this movie, when we're in their room, the opening shot is from the ceiling. It's looking down on this entire family.
No, it starts in the doorway.
That's right.
And then turns to the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool, though, because we get to see this entire family unit just by moving. Forgive me, it's not. Is it the Z-axis? I mean, you're looking right down.
That's a good question.
I mean, I guess the camera is tracking to the side, so it's moving horizontally.
Right.
across all of these actors, and it instantly demonstrates the relationship between all these characters. It's visual storytelling. It's cool.
It's a masterpiece.
We even get the first inklings of telekinetic shenanigans in this movie.
True,
with that, what was it, like a teacup or something that's moving along the table?
Yeah, but that's in the background, I think, of the next shot. But there's even the opening one, because it zooms in on the family from the door, but we see everything we need to see. It's a masterpiece of just information reveal. So there's like needles.
It's brilliant.
Moving over to the woman who's looking at it. The wife is looking at that, but her eyes are closed. To Monkey, who's looking away. To the stalker, who's looking at both of them and looking towards all of the stuff on the chair that we're looking at before. Back to Monkey, who's still
fast
away.
asleep. Yeah.
And then back to the wife, who's now awake and looking. It's back to the like kind of paraphernalia almost stuff. Just absolutely brilliant. Wordless. And I mean, we can break down almost any shot and go into extreme length on it, but we'd be here all day.
Visually underwrites its first act. It's really cool. And the next sequence takes us to a bar where everyone but the stalker is getting really, really drunk.
Yeah, and that's where we meet our other two characters. And we don't learn a lot about them for quite a while, but they are the writer, who is a writer.
He's a writer.
Yeah, and he is very worried about sort of reducing human experience and human condition to scientific principles, to squaring a circle, essentially. And we also see that he's a bit of a hedonist. He's attempting to sleep with a young, beautiful woman.
She wants to go to the zone,
Yeah.
and he wants to take her to the zone.
Yep.
Which, hey man, I'm still swiping right. I get it.
But yeah.
I too want to take pretty ladies to the zone.
Yeah, and the other character we meet is the professor, who is less adamant about his role being, like his job being a professor, but that's what he's called. He seems to be into the zone for more mysterious reasons. We don't learn what he cares about for a bit. But as it turns out, the zone has a room within it called the Room that apparently grants you your deepest desire. Not what you ask it, what you actually have as your deepest desire. And that's the whole goal. These two men have hired the stalker to take them to the Room. And we just get to learn more about those characters along the way. We learn more about the zone itself. And in the end, they don't go into the room. They all leave. They go back to the bar. They seem to get drunk again. The stalker leaves them, and we go back to his family.
Plus a dog.
Plus a dog.
That's a big win for him, you know?
The zone.
Yeah. And they continue to be one big happy family. And then in a thrilling post-credits sequence, Monkey displays that she has telekinetic powers. The movie then tells us that Stalker will return in Avengers Infinity. Which Avengers is coming out next year? Is it Doomsday?
That sounds right. I don't know.
in Infinite Doomsday. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's when Stalker and Monkey are going to be returning.
Oh,
I can't
Greatest
wait.
crossover. But no,
Yes.
fortunately, only half of that happens. We get to see Monkey telekinetically move the glass, and then the movie ends.
Yeah, she's just moving glass with her mind.
Yep, goes up the sounds of railroads and Ode to Joy.
That's right. Ode to Joy does play. You know, dude, we've been talking about Evangelion a lot, and I do think these two media texts kind of they share a fun Venn diagram of both having pretentious Beethoven music in it.
That's true.
And oh God, I didn't just. Ludwig van Beethoven performs Ode to Joy, right?
Correct, yes. It's from
thank
his ninth, I believe.
Christ. I'm sorry, folks. I'm not what you call musically trained. Evangelion also features some of the longest shots, although I think those were more budget related.
Yeah. And
whereas Stalker tends to be a little bit more intentional about that.
yeah, and the Ode to Joy, is worth noting, has a long history, both in like cultural connotation and to film even. My strongest association with Beethoven's, I think it's from the ninth, my strongest association with that is Clockwork Orange, which uses the ninth heavily.
I was killed, all right.
Yeah, and that might even be played, that scene might even be the Ode to Joy, if I remember right.
I mean, I will raise you one Clockwork Orange with one Die Hard.
There we go, yeah. But yeah, it's...
But
and
it's
Clockwork Orange
present
plays
at the
the
end
same things,
of
too.
this movie. And Yeah, I mean, I do think that song is very, triumphant, uh, which sort of makes it an odd misnomer at the end of this movie. Or, is it? I think it
Yeah.
all depends on how you interpret the stalker's journey. But I guess moving backwards in the plot a little bit, I noticed that we have this woman. She's not a prostitute. I thought she might have been an actress while watching it. I mean, she's very high class for the USSR during this period. And she jokes about wanting to go to the zone. Mm-hmm. Of course, she is denied entry, but I do think it's interesting that we do have 3 men going to explore this area.
Yeah,
I mean, does that say anything special about masculinity, or I guess what it means to be a man in this world?
It's possible. I do think there's a heavy line playing around the idea of the nuclear family as sort of something you can rely on, because it's one of the very few things that the stalker kind of has. And of course, the wife at the end has a monologue. Well, to be fair, basically everybody has a monologue at some point of a pretty traditional wife's role, right? Of kind of being.
She talks of their child as a curse.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about some of the mutations that the children of stalkers seem to develop, and this is definitely something of a leftover from the book.
Right, yeah.
Albeit, basically, here's how I can describe any of the changes from the book to this movie. Most of the stuff that was in that book made it into this film, but in a very minimalist state. For example, the book contains a meat grinder room that acts in less philosophical terms and more meat grindery, your leg is dissolving off terms. There are aliens in, I don't even think it's Estonia in the book. I think it's actually just, mainland Russia. Point is, this is a very minimalist feature. They're not interested in the mechanics or the tropes or the monsters in it, but we see at the end of this movie that she's not turning into a literal monkey like she is in the novel, but his daughter is she's basically an X-Men. I mean, she has telekinesis.
Children of the Zone. And it's worth noting, she is tied to the Zone, despite the fact that the Zone mutants do seem to play a less important role in the movie. Most science fiction elements play a less important role, but she is tied to it through a visual motif, which is that this does the Wizard of Oz thing almost in some ways better than the Wizard of Oz, where the majority of these scenes shot outside of the zone are this kind of sepia tone that is predominantly monocolor, but going into the zone becomes full color. And when we leave, it loses the color again. The only 2 scenes outside of the zone that are in full color are the 2 scenes where Monkey is featured, awaken and engaged. So she is tied to the zone that way visually.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting in this film as well. I think the shots. I'm sorry, that's not funny. That's it's squeaky chairs here, folks. Don't get any ideas about anything else. Excuse me. I think the shots get wider. I think they're less tight on the actors' faces. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the stuff in the beginning, it's very descriptive, but I think the camera lenses that they're using, I think they literally get wider as you move into the film. And despite, seemingly being trapped and following all these rules for navigating the zone and being a stickler for rituals and the like, I think the stalker feels more freedom in the zone than he does in the color bereft hellscape. Is it right to call it a hellscape?
I mean, it's not happy.
It looks like Silent Hill 1 in some places. It's a fucked up industrial wasteland. Mm-hmm. I mean, this man is I think it's pretty safe to assume he's doing a lot of drugs, right?
It's definitely implied, and it's also worth noting, like, this world some sort of zone does exist, right? Because it's guarded by literal guards with guns. Yeah. So some kind of zone exists. But once we get into the zone, there's constant references from the stalker that this is a very dangerous place, that it's built literally out of your own mind, is what he mentions. Like, you kind of make something real.
It plays by its own rules.
Right. But we don't... And it feels very mysterious, too. We get the feeling from it that things are dangerous, that something is off here. And the visuals do reinforce this. Obviously, everything is kind of crumbling. The civilized elements are being reclaimed by nature. We have an amazing shot of a bunch of tanks just slowly rusting out in this empty field. There's this stark beauty, and it does feel a lot like the exclusion zone around Chernobyl. Entirely unintentionally, this movie was released before that. It couldn't have been based on that.
Well, dude, I think real life has. Look, the events of history have transpired in such a way that this movie, maybe it didn't have that haunting quality in 1979 before its cast and crew died and before Chernobyl happened as an event. But I think it.
No, I think it did.
Yeah, I mean, point is, it has it now. I mean, it's quite the legacy that this film has left behind, and it makes it almost a little bit ominous, I think.
And I think I would say it probably had this before even we see the historical kind of follow through. Just the idea, the look of like that kind of ghostly view. It's so hard to not see it as terrifying.
The zone feels a lot like Memento Mori. It's a reminder of your own mortality.
What's
and the fact that everything will rust and decay and fade away one day, but nature will still be left. And I think there's it's a really dreadful thought to have. I feel like if you tell your GP that, you might be walking out of a doctor's office with a nice little prescription. However, it's almost kind of freeing, just because there is a beauty in how nature has returned for this zone, and I guess that
you could see it as triumphant, right? And there's an element as well consistently throughout the film. There's elements of sort of modernity, kind of hallmarks of it, noted with again like the continued motif of railroads. We see them constantly. They get to the zone through a railroad. There are railroad sounds across many of the opening and closing shots, including the closing shot. We have elements of railroad within the zone itself, but they vanish once you leave the kind of threshold. And that's fascinating as well, because like railroads are one of those striking visions of modernity, right? They're only found in modern society, and they're extremely modern objects. And that sort of fades away once you get deeper into the zone. There's an idea of how much of this will we fade away, right? How much of this modern civilization is kind of a veneer that's being crumbling? And that gets as well into the more thematic elements of sort of belief and scientific progress versus natural or like desire-based concepts. We see in The Room as well that the room grants your deepest desire, but they mention multiple times that it isn't necessarily what you think you want. And that's told in the story of Porcupine, which was the mentor, ostensibly, of Stalker. The only person who knew him was the Stalker. So maybe he was real, maybe he wasn't. But he wanted his brother back, essentially, who died. But he couldn't get it. He got money instead, is the interpretation the writer gives us, that it plays to your deepest fantasies, whether or not it's actually what you want. Although the writer is also caustically cynical. So be aware that he could be interpreting that very deeply.
Dude, the writer is such a man. He would be the bummer at your party,
he's the most modern figure, right?
Somebody would bring funky flames with them to the party, and everyone would be like, "Oh my god, it's so magical, it's so cool." And then this guy would be like, "It's actually just the dyes that make the fire appear to be blue, and then the red, and then the orange."
Right. And his worry is reducing ineffable beauty, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. The mention he takes a bunch of truths and turns them into a pile of shit.
Isn't it the writer's line in like the first 20 minutes of this movie that there are no miracles in the world?
Precisely. And he's the one worried about.
There's just A squared equals B squared equals C squared. It's such a memorable piece. Yeah. I mean, it's like, even in Russian, it's a very memorable piece of dialogue,
that it's reducing. It is the Clockwork Orange, right? It's reducing something natural, something beautiful, something impossible to grasp to a principle, right? To a locked-in physical or legal like structure.
Yeah.
And that seems to be his biggest worry. So you could absolutely interpret the zone that way, right? Of we're going to a place that like we can't understand, and we're losing something in the process of trying to make it make sense. That maybe that's the point of the zone, right? Is that this is something that we don't understand. And towards the end, it's worth noting, the Stalker mentions like none of them believe anymore. They can't believe. They don't have the faith, right? and none of them go into the room. So maybe that is what you want to interpret from it, is that this is all about belief, that we need to believe in the ineffable beauty rather than trying to just understand it.
And, speaking of religion and power of belief, I felt that Stalker almost has a religious connection to the zone.
yeah.
It's what gives his life meaning.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, when they get to the room, trademark, when they get to the room, I feel like his belief kind of falls apart around him.
Or does it? I mean,
it's hard to tell.
Yeah, because he embraces, basically the writer calls him a louse for leading people here. And he engages with that, though. He embraces the concept of like, yeah, I am a louse, but this is what gives my life meaning, is bringing people here.
I mean, he's in tears. It's such a powerful performance in this movie. And throughout the entire film, this guy has had his shit together. He's been the one who's been giving out commands. He's been giving orders. He's been telling people what to do, where to do it, and how to go about. And this scene it breaks him down at the end.
Yeah, and what's particularly interesting, we learned that Tarkovsky was reading Dostoevsky's The Idiot as he was writing, or at least conceiving of Stalker. And that makes it very interesting because it engages with a very Russian concept of the holy fool. So this is, again, a very long tradition in Russian. The Idiot is probably the best, in my opinion, version of this story with the character of Prince Mishkin, who essentially it's a character who is deeply holy, right? Someone who's truly innocent, truly actually Christian in the Russian context because they're Orthodox, but like this genuinely holy figure, the holy fool, who, by the way, the Stalker is literally called a holy fool by the writer at one point. So this is not just me projecting this concept. But the holy fool has to pretend, or possibly maybe be, depending on the depiction, insane or something ridiculous, right? Literally worthy of ridicule, to use the full correct meaning of that. Because if you actually engage with it, well, you wouldn't be fully religious and pure anymore, right? Because you'd be vain, you would be sort of unhumble, very prideful about this concept of being precisely and perfectly religious, at which point you are not, right? You are no longer. So you have to be a fool. And also and Dostoevsky plays with this a lot, of that you cannot be understood, right? That a world that is fallen cannot understand someone that is truly holy, that it just wouldn't work. So maybe that's what the Stalker is, right? That he's understanding the belief, that he's worried about, obviously, belief, that maybe he's the one in the right? That they don't understand what he is doing, that they don't understand, like you can't walk straight towards the room, right? You have to get kind of around and arrive at it kind of backwards, similar to being a holy fool, right? You can't, if you aim straight at it, you won't get there. But maybe going around by taking a circuitous route, you can. And then maybe that he's correct, that he is the holy fool who's leading them to something that he possesses that they don't. Or maybe he's just genuinely a fool. Again, the writer, the most rational one, is the one calling him a holy fool. He's identified him as a fool, at which point you can't really be a holy fool. So maybe that's the understanding, right? Is that the Stalker is genuinely kind of wrong about this. Because again, the only view we have for the zone being mystical, that the room can grant desires, the only source is the Stalker.
And I certainly don't believe he is intentionally deceiving these people. I
don't think so. Yeah.
He has too much reverence for this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely has a bit of a religious view towards the zone. The only time we see him happy, really, is when he first gets back into the zone from the outside world. It's the only time I think you really see him smile.
You get a sense of palpable relief. Yeah. I mean, he's comfortable. Actually, this movie does put quite a bit of emphasis on the act of sleeping.
That's true. Yeah.
He looks almost uncomfortable in the bed at the beginning, and yet he lays his head on a mossy rock, almost like it's a pillow in this.
Oh, that's a good catch.
Because there's a scene where they decide to rest before moving deeper into this. We gotta find another word for zone.
Zone. We're saying zone a lot, but there's no way around it.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Back in the day when I was a Boy Scout, we used to go camping near this training ground, and for some reason, it was Army base, right? So it was called the BO, but we always called it the booby orgasm.
Of course.
So, before going deeper into the booby orgasm.
Yes, a joke worthy of Stalker. Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. I thought this was getting too highbrow.
I mean, and that's kind of the difficulty. This movie is so good that I just want to rant essentially about how great it is, and I'm having to like stop myself. It is, but there's so many elements here. Because again, we mentioned as well for the religious component, the Stalker literally speaks about the story of the road to Emmaus, right? Where two men see Jesus after he is killed and comes back to life and don't recognize him, right? Which again plays into the concept of the holy fool of like, they don't see him as Jesus. But does that make Stalker the Stalker in this case? Is he Jesus? Is he leading them out? Or maybe it's Monkey, because again, that's a character who's nobody sees. And in this case, the audience doesn't even see as important until shows some sort of power, some sort of like actual ability to run in. Again, it's more tightly tied with the zone than the Stalker is. So maybe Monkey is our holy fool, our Jesus on Emmaus.
I mean, for some metatextual analysis, at this point, Tarkovsky, he did have a family. Thankfully, it appears, I'm not sure if he had a son or a daughter, but thankfully he was survived by someone. So I'm going to assume that, his child wasn't on set of this movie, but I do think it's interesting because, this man was a father and, he's adapting a text about fatherhood. And I mean, I guess we don't have enough information on the Tarkovsky family dynamic or whatever, but I wonder if he's almost bringing a little bit of himself into this movie.
That's possible. I mean, this definitely feels like a very personal movie for Tarkovsky. He seems to have been very engaged with this idea because we know he wrote it after the Soviets banned. They didn't allow another one of his films to be shown, and as a result, he was very focused. He almost moved to theater and eventually defected to the West after this. This was his final Soviet film. And I think there's a lot in that of that kind of, not really despair. There's a lot of kind of use of cinema that I don't think he would have seen if he hadn't been kind of willing to go all out. And I've seen interpretations of the zone that it is like about cinema, like it's a world where we create inside of our heads. So like maybe the zone itself is cinema, right? Like a metatextual commentary from Tarkovsky that, the zone is just right, it's finding a belief in nothing. I'm not sure I like that, honestly, but it is possibly a reading of this movie. I think it's personally one of the least interesting ones, but it is there. And one of the big difficulties as well is, again, we don't see the zone actually do anything particularly metaphysical with one major exception where a voice calls a character that none of the other two said they spoke. But that's, as far as I can tell, the only time the zone does something genuinely supernatural.
Yeah, because again, this is just an element that they play very fast and loose with in this movie. I mean, dude, I still don't think I have an answer for you as to whether or not this zone was, supernatural. Like, I guess he really could have played his hand and we could have gotten a scene using lo-fi 1970s technology where because throughout the film they're throwing these they're like lug nuts or screws with like a bandage tied around it, and I think they're doing this to prove that gravity is working, or at least I think that's what the Stalker is trying to tell the people around him. Like, if we throw this, it will tell us where to go.
Is that what the book is using as well? Or
I believe so. Yeah, and I do think it's interesting because if you apply that logic to this film, this is just, well, it's like it's a ritual he's using to add more mysticism, because the reality is, these guys probably could have walked in a straight line towards the building. It's just, we have to test it with these magnets.
And that
because, a lack of gravity, that's totally something that could happen here, guys. You got to believe me. I'm the Stalker.
And that's the good question, right? Is like, is this ritual relevant, right? Like, is it genuinely that if they had tried to walk straight there, they would have died or had a problem? Or is this just him ritualizing something, right? And I don't know. It is left ambiguous, which I think improves the film because the readings that you can take away are incredibly numerous.
Well, to be fair, I would welcome a remake of this movie that is 83 minutes long and features shots of guys falling off of planet Earth or getting eaten by monsters. Or wait a minute, is that just Annihilation?
You want the Hollywood remake? Yeah. Annihilation definitely.
Not that I'm trashing Annihilation. I love that movie, but it's a good movie, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
It's not this good.
Yeah, it seems to me like Roadside Picnic was one of those science fiction texts that perhaps just a lot of people read it and they kind of they took something away from it, and that idea was like, it'd be really cool if there was like a mystery X zone that people had to travel into. I mean, look, that book has. I just brought up, Annihilation. I wouldn't be surprised if the original author of that book, took some influence from this. But this spawned a really popular like action video game that has a lot of fans.
We have not played it. Just to be
no, I have not. I mean, I hear it's. To be honest with you, I don't think I will play it because apparently it's like it's in the Dark Souls realm of video games where you suffer while you're playing it, but that eventually becomes the joy of playing it. So I don't know. I probably just won't get good enough. And then there's this movie, and I do think it's interesting when directors, people have a real visual eye, read a book and they kind of come up with like a fever dream rendition of it. I think David Fincher does this to Fight Club, and that is a very different book from that movie. And that's one of those instances where I think most people are probably more familiar and maybe might prefer, the film.
Sometimes the movie is actually better.
Yeah.
And in this case, the film is absolutely incredible. And just to kind of get into a little bit of the perspective of the filmmaker that you're mentioning there, obviously he strips most of the science fiction elements, but I think that improves a lot of the story because you, instead of having an answer, you have to question. You're just left with the negative space, with the philosophical openness, and I love that because again, the question that this gets to, there's so many possible readings of the zone of like what this is supposed to be or do, and I do think it's still science fiction in kind of its broadest sense because these are questions science fiction loves to discuss, but of like what is the point of this, right? Is this something that we need to care about belief? Is this a question of deep down human desire? Is this a modernism versus more rooted, kind of grounded familial linking? Like, and all of those are valid. They're all here.
I mean, very specifically, Tarkovsky didn't make a movie about his desire, about what he wanted. There are certainly, I think there are shades of that where allegedly he had really wanted to leave the USSR. He found it difficult
I don't know if you need to
exist.
Allege that. I think he did eventually leave it. So
yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, the USSR apparently wasn't the coolest place to be.
Yeah,
who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? But I think had the movie just been about man wants to leave, it would have been a lot less interesting. It would have. I don't think it would have translated the same way. But making a movie that's far more generally about desire, a universal thing human beings experience.
Yeah, because that's another element that this plays with so much.
It
that we haven't even
resonates
talked
wider.
about. Yeah, and one of the most interesting things this film does is they mention like only the unhappy can get to this true desire, right, to the room, that it stops those who are not. There's an element of like meeting desire kind of has the monkey's paw element, but it's also that maybe it's just not what you expect. And it seems to be that, that getting, at least from what we see, again, assuming we believe the stalker or the writer, getting what you desire most doesn't necessarily make you happy either, that you're still unhappy afterwards. So the desire itself seems to be, it's almost an Eastern conception, right? Of like a Buddhist idea of, well, desire is the problem. It's not that getting your desire is what's better. It's that the desire itself is causing the pain and suffering. But which maybe you could play even into the holy fool concepts that we have with the stalker himself. But it's all left so open-ended that I'm not even sure what to think towards the end of the film, because we get, obviously the writer's view is that it's all kind of bullshit, right? That this is, stalker's probably lying, that maybe this is just kind of dumb, and that all of this is kind of falling down. But he still doesn't go to the room. He's still scared because he's the one who almost falls into it, right? And the stalker has to grab him and pull him back.
Yeah.
So he doesn't. He still this.
He's furious when he's told he has to go into the next room first.
Yeah, the mist still has some sort of hold over him, even though he doesn't seem to
He's
want to believe
vehemently angry about it. He is so insistent that the professor go instead. And then he finally enters the room, and yeah, there's a weird mix of emotions there. I guess you can, like, there's some relief that, he hasn't been killed, but there's so much like dread and apprehension from this character before moving in.
Room, correct.
And yeah, oh my God, okay. I don't mean to change the subject, but can we talk about the Dune room real quick?
Oh, sorry, I thought that's where we were.
See, this is one of the hard things about working in a audio only medium. I can't just put up a picture of the Dune room. Honestly, if you look up the poster for Stalker, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Just look, enter in Stalker Sand Room or Dune Room or whatever on Google Images, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. And it's beautiful. I mean, every time I had seen this still prior to this movie, I thought for some reason it was like bodies being like dissolved in lye. It's such a weird like liminal space. There's a lot of leading lines. It's very hypnotic.
Yeah, and it's difficult to parse. So there's no straight lines, which again plays into the kind of natural versus modern themes as well. But there's also a really interesting moment before we even get to the Dune room that I'd like to mention, where they have to draw lots to go into this big tunnel, and the writer wants to have a volunteer but doesn't get it, and he loses. But they draw matches, essentially a long match versus a short match. Yeah. He accuses the Stalker of giving him 2 long matches so that he always would have won. And the Stalker never had a chance even of going himself, even if he didn't lie, which we never see, by the way. We can't tell if he actually did or not. But we do know he threw it away out of their sight, so if he had been lying, it would have covered it.
Yeah.
And that plays in, again, right, is like, is he playing with chance? Is he genuinely sending the writer on farther? And if so, why? Why is the writer the one who gets to go first? And the Stalker kind of gives an explanation of like, well, you can't lose me because I'm the only one who can get you out. And no one apparently can go back in the zone the same way, but it's also just kind of, well, did he lie? We don't know. Because again, is he constructing this world? And the professor as well, we learn not too long after this, is that he went into the zone, not for any altruistic purposes, but because he
wanted to blow that shit up.
He wanted to destroy it. That he doesn't want the desire, right? Kind of taking the Buddhist edge of like, well, like maybe the goal is to destroy desire, right? To destroy what ultimately this is. And part of the reason he went into the zone as well is because the guy, he's trying to show up a man who slept with his wife. Like 20 years ago too, which is quite a long time to hold a grudge. Although I guess he did sleep with his wife, so fair. But he's trying to show somebody up and do their plan better, which is another fascinating little element, that this is one of those movies where there's no wasted time or space, despite the fact that there's a lot of empty space. None of it is pointless.
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about some of the ways in which you could ruin all these perfect, beautiful shots that have been set up. Because you're right. I mean, it relies on negative space. It relies on really utilizing the environment to build a connection and to inform these characters and what they're going through. And before I get to my yucks and my jokes, I mean, dude, can we just talk about how they're using water in this movie, and very specifically the fate of the bomb produced by the professor?
Oh, yeah. And so basically from the beginning, there's a ton of water everywhere. And again, it plays into a lot of themes of like natural world kind of slowly degrading, because obviously water is very good at that, of sort of the power of this ineffable or like things we can't understand. It's literally warping the visuals of everything that's inside it. So it's doing a great job dealing with all of its themes. And there's water in the tunnels that you have to eventually wade through. There's water in waterfalls. There's points where they mention that you often have to swim, but in this case there's lower water. And then when you get to it, the room, which we see but never, obviously none of the characters ever enter, the only thing in it is a thin layer of water, and then it rains, and there's more water. And the bomb that the professor has brought with him, they take it apart, and they throw it into the room, at least parts of it into the room.
The flooded parts specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it leaks out. I don't even know.
Dude, you get that same overhead camera that's just pointing right down at this puddle, at this flooded section of the room, with this spherical, bright, shiny tube that's this bomb lying in the middle of it, being surrounded by fish who are feeding off of things in the little pond as
and it's
mysterious
it's
black
the film, like
bomb juice. It's like bomb juice that's leaking. Do bombs have juice? Well, sure. I guess, in this movie, for all intents and purposes, it's this disgusting oil slick that is like rising above from it. I mean, it's very sinister, but it's like very serene.
Yeah, because it's sort of swallowing the fish, right? It's replacing the water a little bit. It's so hard to describe again without being able to just put a screenshot next to it, but it is stunningly beautiful.
Okay, so remember how I was talking about ways in which I would ruin Stalker? Mm-hmm. You use your AI machine, you use your trickery to turn the bomb into a Red Bull bottle.
Oh yeah, there we go. Product placement. You can make some money off that. Yeah.
Yeah, and remember all of those boring old shots of just characters standing around in
there's so
rooms
many.
and shit? Well, I figure this movie has to make some money somehow,
true.
so you should digitally insert a Starbucks into the background
Ooh,
of
that's a
every
great
scene.
idea. Yeah, I
Yes.
think it plays into the themes of the modern world, right? Nothing more
Yeah.
modern than a good cup of Starbucks coffee.
Yeah, and then just for shits and giggles, use the AI machine to make everyone in this movie have no pants.
Okay, that would make it fun.
Yeah, yeah, just a bunch of dudes just walking around with no pants in the middle of Russia, and last but not least, you need to use your standard normal editor to speed up all these boring, useless shots.
Agreed, yeah. It's too
Yeah,
long.
I
too
mean,
long.
161 minutes. What are you doing? You could get this thing down to like,
Yeah. Maybe you could add like 3 or 4 cuts for every
yeah,
long shot.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be a perfect movie. That would be a much better movie.
yeah, and just put it on like triple speed the whole time.
Oh, there we go. That's perfect.
Bingo.
Maybe double speed. Give it a
Yeah,
little room to breathe, you know.
triple.
Okay, sounds good. We gotta make sure. Can't be
Good.
too bored. Yeah. And that is one thing we did notice consistently is that the empty space does give you a chance to think, and to reflect. And
Also, the music is very minimalist and it's
Yeah.
not present all the time. But when it does kick in, it's really cool because, for example, in the first scene, when they are taking their rail cart towards the entrance of the zone, you hear this very hypnotic sound of, it's like a click clacking. It's like one of those
it's crossing
old
the rail
push
joints, yeah.
carts, right, where you gotta
I
raise
think
the
it's a
thing
little
up and down.
diesel rail machine essentially. So I think it's diesel at least. It's
Yeah,
some sort of engine powered.
but you just hear the mechanical sounds of this engine working, and then the score kind of like bleeds into that, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, because it's just the sound of the click clack of the expansion joints, the wheels crossing it.
And they do that.
That is the score.
They
Yeah.
do that again with droplets of water later on, which I think is
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That the score is barely there, but what little is here is truly mystifying. And I mean that in the truest sense of the word, like as adding mystical or like mysticality, if that's a word. But it manages to somehow imbue a sense of like ambiguousness and ominousness while also a little bit of like sublime beauty. And I didn't know you could do that with a bunch of sounds of railroad expansion joints, but apparently you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just, this film moves at such of a slower tempo than we're used to today in contemporary media.
Reject modernity, embrace tradition. Mike.
Bill. Again, this is God, dude, like, this is a challenging movie to talk about.
It's too good.
Yeah.
And I feel like I keep returning to the themes just because there's so much there to talk about. And I want to mention it, but I do want to mention a little bit of the craft of the film itself, which is harder to talk about specifically because it's just good. But I'll mention a little bit on the camera consistently, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, that it makes you feel like you're in the perspective of one of the main characters, but then we'll pull the rug out from you. And they do this multiple times. So there's a scene at the beginning or at the beginning of the zone, it's like 45 minutes in, where we zoom through an old, I think it's an infantry fighting vehicle, and we see the corpse of a soldier and his gun. But it takes a while for that to resolve. We're so far back at the start that it kind of doesn't seem like it. But as you get closer, you realize what it is. It's perfectly playing with information. It's perfectly playing with time. But it's also, from a perspective, it looks like from a human height.
They do that again too when the group is in the tunnel, and I think it's
That's
the
true,
writer
yeah.
notices the female body that has decomposed down to like a
it's 2 bodies.
skeleton. Yeah, excuse me, it's 2 bodies. Aren't they holding each other almost?
I believe so. Yeah, they're almost cuddling, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
The second one reveals itself slowly as you zoom in.
It's really hard to make it out at first, and when your mind first processes what you're seeing, you're going to a lot of different places, but it isn't really until I saw her hair that it clicked for me that this is the body of someone who died trying to get into the zone. Also, I just want to double back to my previous points about female characters in the movie. Well, we do see a woman in the zone, and Yeah, like super dead.
That's true. That's the only. Although to be fair, those are the only other people we see in the zone at all. And yeah, the way I agree with you, the way it zooms in is incredible because sounds like I saw the woman maybe a little bit earlier, but I didn't catch the second body till very late. I kind of just assumed, my brain was like, okay, it's the body of a woman, and I was thinking about that and just like didn't assume there was more to see until like very, very late in the shot when I was like, oh crap, there's another person there that she's holding on to, which completely changed my view on the shot. But it was also because my own
That
mind
completely
was
changes the
me.
context.
Yeah, and it's because I assumed that I knew it, which I think even these shots, like the way the shot plays into the themes in a brilliant way. And to get a little bit to what I was mentioning with perspective, like they do it multiple times where you're from the perspective seemingly of a character, where you're like from human height, kind of it's like moving like a human would do, it's gliding in the ways that you would expect, or taking a perspective, and you'll see like maybe one of the other characters in the shot.
Oh, and technically speaking, I don't think they had access to a Steadicam.
Really? Wow.
Again, don't quote me on that, but from what I was reading and from what the production stills said, they were building train tracks all over for this movie. So like a lot of it is like dolly in, dolly out.
Man.
Actually, hang on. Did this movie have Steadicam? Let me just double check that real quick.
Please do, yeah. And I kind of finish my thought while you're checking on that, but it often pulls the idea of like, well, you're looking at it from a person's perspective, but then maybe all the other characters will be on screen and they won't be there, or maybe they'll all be on screen while you're still in that perspective shot, and it breaks it up feeling like you're either in the presence of like some sort of fourth visitor or character, or there's some sort of otherworldly feel. It breaks the perspective of what you can be confident of and sure of, which both makes the zone feel more terrifying and also more interesting, more unknowable, sort of ineffable, but it also plays with your own expectations of film, which is a very interesting concept of that. It's sort of establishing a perspective shot that then breaks it. It shows the limits of where conventional film language can be used to tell theme, to describe story, and can bring attention to itself, strangely, and still be good film.
So you want to know something cool?
I do.
No Steadicam.
Man, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And part of me, I was actually reflecting on what you just said. Look, I'm pretty sure, yes, we would miss some stuff. We probably wouldn't have as in-depth of a perspective on the movie. But if something happened to my Criterion Collection Blu-ray, and if we lost the subtitles, I think we could divine a lot of the movie's intention and messaging, just based on the cinematography alone.
Yeah, I think you'd get most of it. You would lose a little bit of
You would definitely
context.
lose context. You would miss important parts, but I think you would get the broad strokes.
I think that's true. You'd probably get the atmosphere for sure. It's not quite Star Wars where like you could understand the whole story. This is a more complex idea, but I would agree with that. The dialogue is here. And it's worth noting the dialogue also plays into the themes as well and into the visuals. I know there was a big kind of internet kerfuffle a little bit ago as we record this about Denis Villeneuve mentioning that he doesn't like dialogue in film, that it should be mostly a visual story. I don't think he's right. And I think Stalker is a great example of the way that dialogue can be used to play into the filmic language itself. That zooming in on a character who's monologuing or speaking is constant in Stalker. We see it a lot. We also often zoom out and hear dialogue over visuals that is completely recontextualizing what those visuals are, while also playing into what we believe about it. I think this is a great example of dialogue that is not just like obviously used to describe or to expose or exposit, but that is played into the pacing, the sort of soundscape of the movie, and into the visuals of the movie, because the way that the words are used encourages you to kind of draw the right information. And again, it plays with the pacing of that information in the same way that we mentioned the first shot does, where you see exactly what you need to. Well, the visuals and the dialogue is combined here to give exactly what you should at any given moment. And Tarkovsky shows an absolutely masterful touch on when you should use dialogue, when a visual will do, and when the combination of both will hit the hardest. And yeah, it's a great view on what good film dialogue looks like, despite the fact that it isn't our native language. Neither is speak Russian.
Zach, I don't think there's anything else I can possibly contribute to what you just said, other than, I agree completely, and I think it is always, at least to me, the test over whether I think a movie is, truly superb. Like if it stands heads and shoulders above all the other movies I've seen, is, it's all down to how it makes me feel. Like if it gets me to question my own life and my own being or existence, not in the way that Mission Impossible did, but in a more sincere fashion, I think a movie has succeeded for me. And Stalker is one of those where I can't see myself rewatching this next week, but I think I could definitely see myself putting this on from time to time and just contemplating or excuse me, oh my God, I can't English today, guys, but
Too much Russian.
Yeah, too much Russian, But point is, this is a very contemplative movie that I think urges the audience to look inward, and I don't know, that's really cool.
Yeah, spend the 2 hours 40 minutes, live the contemplative life for a bit, and do let it. Like, I don't think this is a very modern internet friendly movie. Reviewing this is definitely not an algorithmically positive decision on our part.
No, it's not.
It is. Most modern movies, at least in a lot of cases, especially blockbusters, are very afraid of empty space because it gives you a chance to get bored potentially, and especially given that getting bored, has accelerated a lot even in the last few years.
It's really, really easy for people to get bored these days. And look, I do like this movie. It's definitely not one I would throw on at a party.
No, don't do that.
This is not a movie where, hey, if my friends are in from out of town, I'm like, guys, let's watch Stalker. Yeah. I guarantee you half the people in that group will be like, well, actually, we were planning to stay at your place, but hey, look, we got to go check out this hotel.
Yeah, no.
We'll be back tomorrow after you're done watching that really long, weird Russian movie.
Yeah, and we specifically, by the way, sometimes we'll split movies up that we watch into two chunks.
We did this all in one sitting, baby.
Yeah, we made sure as well. This wasn't even just a...
Wait, hang on.
All in one sitting. Yeah, there we go. Much better. There we go. This wasn't even one where we were like, well, we probably should watch this. We made time specifically for it, and I think that was the right call, even though we couldn't have known it fully at the time.
Actually, I had the opportunity to go see this at the Alamo Drafthouse up in, I want to say it was Littleton. Anyways, this was back when I was working at Trader Joe's, and when life was just really busy, and I got out of work. I'm like, look, I can choose to go see this movie in 6 hours, or I can... do other things. I can sleep and have some food and, maybe I'll just revisit this later. And do I regret making that decision? Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I would have loved to have seen this in the movie theaters. I'm kind of disappointed that wasn't my first viewing experience, but at the same time, I would not have enjoyed it. I would not have gotten the same takeaway because, like I said, this is 3 hours of deeply contemplative cinema and coming off a 8-hour shift. No, this is not the type of movie you want to watch.
And for those of you who are confused, because we spent a decent amount of time in our reviews mentioning our kind of surrounding experiences, like where we saw it, how we saw it, and why, this is the perfect movie to exemplify why that matters, because where you sit down to see a movie impacts what you see from it. The frame of mind you're in when you look at a movie does impact it. And
man, I can only imagine going to the Cinemark to see this.
Yeah.
You're sitting in row Q7, or I'm sorry, K7, in the middle of the screen, in the middle of the theater, and everyone else is there, and people just keep on walking out, and then, next thing you know, there's this one guy watching Pornhub, and then someone's on TikTok, and then someone's messaging or whatever, and you're like, oh,
this is... assume that people would pay to view
This
Stalker.
is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is what you bring to the movie does matter, as much as we often like to, the art can be viewed on its own. I don't think that's true. You're always going to bring something to it, and this is a very good example of why we have that philosophy of... Personally, it just lets you know better what our perspective is coming from, but also it lets you know, we we're people who like to spend our entire time looking at one movie. This would not work as a second screen experience. This would not work as anything other than demanding your full attention. And it doesn't even really demand it. It just asks for it. And man, it was so hard for me to say no.
Yeah. Now, Zach, I have never done drugs ever.
Of course, yes.
I guess, theoretically, would you put this movie in the category of wouldn't do drugs while watching it, or wouldn't do drugs watching it?
That's a good question. So I studied philosophy in college. So I have had the experience to engage with a lot of different philosophical media. My general assessment is that it's a bad idea to do drugs while dealing with really deep philosophical concepts, because I think you think it's the most relevant thing in the world, but turns out your interpretation was pretty bad, or you just don't get it and you don't get anything out of it, is my experience. I probably would put this in the category of wouldn't do drugs. But
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have found agreement. I know podcasts are supposed
and
to have
as someone
argument,
who has never made questionable decisions regarding movies and redacted, don't just like I said, find the time, find the Sunday afternoon, and give this your full attention.
Yeah. And the drugs we're talking about are actually legal where we live.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, we live in one of the cool states.
All right, I have no other comments, no other wisdom I can deliver, about this movie. Zach, do you have any last comments last observations?
I mean, I could keep ranting about Stalker for hours, but I don't think I would say anything particularly novel if I did so.
Yeah. I'm not sure we can really say anything about this movie that hasn't already been said, but that's kind of the beauty of it.
It's new to us, and
you're going to have personal experiences watching this movie that will be very hyper specific to you, and that's kind of why this is an incredible work of art.
Yeah, I would agree. And yeah, take some time, sit down, engage with the weird Russian. I believe this is on YouTube, actually. I think the whole thing is Mosfilm put a lot of their films up. I do not know if the subtitles or the transfer of that are good.
Yeah,
but it is available.
Look, this movie is war crime free.
That's true.
There are no horrifying death scenes. Nobody is assaulted in the back of a van.
True. Yeah, this is a much more cheery Russian film than our last Russian film.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's kind of that funny, debate you see amongst video gamers where they're like, yeah, but it's rated M, but it's not mature. You have a fart gun and there's blood, tits, and ass everywhere, and like, yeah, how is that mature, right? Whereas, you look at some other things that are a bit more, I guess, cerebral, and like, here's the thing, you probably could get away with showing this to like a 10-year-old or whatever. It's just they would be bored to fucking tears.
Yeah, like there's nothing really objectionable. Maybe some parents wouldn't be thrilled with the needle imagery in some places.
Yeah, probably not.
But that's really the only thing I can think of that like a censor could take out.
I mean, you could get away with showing this movie on TV with no edits for graphic, violent content. Granted, good luck showing a 3-hour movie on cable these days.
Yeah, it turns out I guess we did have something to say, that this manages to string together its message without any sort of remotely like. Oh, there's some cursing, I guess, but it's the only
whatever.
It's pretty sparse though.
Russian
weirdly,
curses.
Yeah, I think but weirdly, I think it's very violence free, very very horror free, despite the fact that it has some horror type vibes, as we like to say. Yeah,
horror adjacent perhaps, but it's like the diet of horror. It's just 1 calorie, not scary enough.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it. We wouldn't necessarily call this like horrifying as much as like disconcerting.
Dude, it's not even existential dread,
It's really, I would disagree with it. I felt some existential dread.
Okay, fair enough.
Maybe that's just
fair
me.
Enough. Oh my god.
Okay. That's a positive for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, we have nothing but good things to say about Stalker. It's a great movie. Go check it out. And coming up next on Movies on Fire, Zach, we have one more installment left in our John Wayne trilogy.
Yes,
The
our John and
Man
for John
Who
Wayne.
Shot Liberty Valance.
That
I
is
believe.
correct. Yeah, we'll be taking a very different tone.
Yeah, I can't wait getting back to, I don't know, fart jokes and making fun of movies.
Yes,
and,
the famous John Ford fart jokes.
Yeah, and whatnot. I don't know, man. Like, this was classy. This was a good time.
Yeah, eventually I would love to check out Solaris at some point.
That is on the list. Yeah.
You've turned me on to Tarkovsky.
Absolutely. I mean, have you seen the man in his denim jacket? I mean, it was good looking, for the time, man. I mean, it was 1979. Like, I look, I can see why this dude ended up having 4 kids. I'll just say that. Alrighty, guys. This has been Movies on Fire. Movies on Fire. Movies on Fire.